unveiling this plan. This year we would be spending maybe about $20 billion on that. Next year, even double that amount. So as we go along, the spending will increase. In that, many companies are participating, not just Japanese but global companies. So one way of working with Japan is through a linked finance project, something which we are doing as a JICA finance project, which is for Shinkansen. But there are many other sectors in which Japanese companies can come and participate, because if others are going to benefit, we would also like the Japanese companies to benefit as well. And therefore, that's another significant area. And now the Japanese companies are looking at it. We had recently organized a major exhibition in India. Therefore, the Japanese minister came for that, and that point also is taken forward. The another area that I mentioned was, why not use Japanese pension funds for financing some of the railways infrastructure in India? As you know, the Japan has a very unique situation. They have a large population which is now become pensioners. And thanks to Japanese lifestyles, thanks to Japanese medical system, thanks to Japanese entire ecosystem which have developed, Japanese longevity of people is increasing. The life expectancy has risen dramatically. So therefore, this is going to be a very interesting challenge for many economies, but particularly also Japan, how to finance and make sure that the pension liabilities are made properly. As you know, because of Japanese economy not growing, and in fact this quarter again has been little not so good, the interest rates are pretty low, and obviously therefore the returns on pensions are also very low. If you can find out part of that pension to be used for railways in India by making investments on a long-term basis, Japanese pension funds can benefit, Indian railways can benefit. And any pension fund will first look at security, because capital is very important, and I would also not advise anybody to invest into any sector pension funds which are risky. Railways has a great advantage because they are very safe investment, because railways are owned by the government of India. So therefore, virtually the capital is not only guaranteed, but even the interest on that also is in a way guaranteed. Also, this one sector in which there will be always income that will be flowing in. We already got about $40 billion of revenue. In the next 5 years, we'll have at least 50% more of that, at least more than that maybe, but at least that. And therefore, the income, the revenue stream will rise, top line will be good, and therefore the pension funds also can benefit. On the last day, which I mentioned in the Prime Minister's office, they also organized one more meeting, and that time the CEO of the pension fund also came. So I think this is something which first time we suggested this, and I must say, to the credit of my Japanese friends, that despite the fact that there was no enough notice given, because only the day my visit was also planned last minute, and therefore I just suggested that why not we expand the area of cooperation with Japan, just going beyond one point. We should do that, but we should also do something more. And when I suggested this all, the way Japanese responded is something phenomenal, and really thank you, welcome it. And therefore now we have got a cooperation on many areas, including how to bring safety into railways. Japanese have got a very fantastic record of safety, almost zero accident, and therefore we want to work on that, not just for the superfast train, not for the HSR, the high-speed railways, but also for all railway networks. And therefore that again is the area we are working. So I expanded the cooperation, and immediately it was agreed, and now we are taking it forward. So I'm very happy that now the cooperation of India with Japan in railways is extremely broad-based. It has gone beyond just one point, but many points. And that will keep expanding as we go along, and we'd like to make sure that we have this special relationship with Japan. We'd like to have a special relationship with Japan even in railways, and make sure that Japanese and Indian sectors, both economies, benefit from this cooperation, because there is no point in only one party benefiting, and the Japanese must also benefit from cooperation with India. India must benefit from cooperation with Japan, and that's how this cooperation will go higher and higher. So we really look forward to that happening. I know when the Japanese and India rail cooperation happens, one cannot even imagine the benefit that will accrue to the economy as a whole. In my opinion, Indian railways will contribute more than 2.5%, even 3% to the GDP of India in the over a period of time. Once our first investment cycle of 5 years is over, probably the next 5 years we need to invest even double that amount. And that's how only we can catch up with what has not happened in the railways for the last so many decades. So to make that happen, we really need to make investment. When we make that investment, there will be so much of pull from so many other sectors. So the railways will pull steel, cement and other demands. Railways will create employment in many sectors, and that will also benefit the economies of the countries which will make investment, because their technology will come, their financing will come, their other opportunities will come. Recently we did the global tenders, and we are already given contracts to 2 companies, and in a completely transparent way, and that is something like over a period of time maybe more than $10 billion. And in fact, so other contracts that will be offered in the next few years will be even more than that. Each of these will be made in India. So what is important is this contract that I have been given. All of that, of course, these are the companies from Europe and US, not from Japan, but all of that will be made in India. So just imagine the employment that will be created as a result of this, the type of technology advancement that will happen in India as a period of this. And also something, the cardinal principle behind taking economic decision making now is complete transparency. In fact, 100% transparency. I'll just tell you, the top global companies were participating into this. The top company, one of the top Fortune, forget 500, Fortune top 10 companies who lost out on order, went and said that we are happy we lost because we have never seen such a transparency in many other countries in the world. So this is something which I think as something which is necessary. Not just take economic decision, but do it in a completely transparent way. And that is what we'll be definitely doing. In fact, you'll be surprised that I myself did not know who has got the tender, because I don't see the tender at all. Not a single tender comes to the minister. This was the first decision I took as a Minister of Railways, that not a single tender will be seen by me. So I am not involved into any commercial decision making, but my job is to make sure that railways progress, we get investment to railways, we make sure that we modernize, we make sure that we make our travel safer and also more convenient and better. But to make this, we have a completely transparent process, which I am sure even the Japanese companies will be very happy to do it. One more area in which we are working with Japan is a special project, is dedicated freight corridor. As you know, this is about $15 billion project. I got it approved from the cabinet for the cost only a few weeks ago at 82,000 crores, which is close to that, depending upon how you calculate dollar to rupee. But this is that kind of project. In last 6 months, the amount of contracts we issued were not issued in the last, the tenders we issued were not issued in last 6 months. And now we'll be completing this in this fiscal, most of it, and the target now is to complete this project in next 3.5 years. So we have put it on fast track. There is another project which we are working with Japan is Calcutta Metro. That again was, as you know, was languishing for some time. I went to Calcutta, I met the Honorable Chief Minister Mamtaji there, I requested her, we sorted out all the issues, because there were the issues which people thought will never get sorted out related to land and others. Thankfully she cooperated, and we immediately are also trying to put that project into the fast track. So many of these projects are now under advanced stage of implementation. Some of the new ideas are coming to fruition, and therefore I think that relationship with Japan in railways as a part of our, the title of this topic today, part of our bilateral relationship in economic issues is going to thrive in the years to come. This is just a beginning. I can see it progressing at a rate which will be faster than the speed at which the Shinkansen train runs. In fact, this is what I was telling the Prime Minister of Japan. So when he was mentioning this, I said, I have to find out which has the faster speed. The relationship is running faster or the train will run faster? So he said, he was very happy. He said, yes, I think it is a good thing. So I think I really look forward to working very closely with my friends in Japan. And as I said, beginning, Japan and India have so many things in common, so much to learn from each other, so much to benefit from each other, and therefore we can take it forward to a new level. And I think to take it to new level, we need many building blocks, and one of the building blocks will be the railways, and I think railways will contribute significantly to make this relationship better in the years to come. So I wish to thank my friend Ambassador Hemant Singh as well as my good friend Rajat for organizing the event, and as always our Ambassador is omnipresent. Whenever it's Indo-Japan relationship, ambassador is always there. So Ambassador, thank you very much, and I look forward to sharing many such good news with the people on the eve of the visit, post-visit, and subsequent to that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Now, you got an evidence of why Mr. Suresh Prabhu is regarded as one of the most dynamic ministers, as has been awarded with that title as well. Thank you, Minister, so much for those stimulating remarks, and we wish you all the best with what you've started with the railways, and of course, as you say, this will spill over to the rest of the economy. We also thank Ambassador Yagi for his support for this conference, and thank you very much, and we wish you all the best for your future endeavors, and congratulate you for what you have been able to do in India to foster a better relationship between India and Japan, and to strengthen that relationship, as the Minister has said, that it is now progressing very, very fast, and we hope that it outpaces the train as well. We've already had a coffee and tea break. So what I would suggest is, before we conclude this session, may I request that please don't go. We'll kind of seamlessly transport into the next session, which happens to be chaired by me. So I will continue to stay here while the guests on the dais will leave. But you please don't go anywhere, and we'll continue with the session. But before we conclude, may I request Angana, is she here? Angana? To please, there she is. Angana to give a bouquet to the Minister as a token of, oh, she's already given the bouquet. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much, all of you. Mr. Ichiro Abe and Mr. Masazumi Konishi. Could you please all come on to the dais? You haven't collected a... Let's begin this session. As you can see from your program, the session is entitled Make in India, Japan's Role in Enhancing India's Manufacturing Prowess. And we have an eminent panel. All the profiles of the panelists are in the booklet that you've been given, so I would please request you to have a look at that. And you probably also know all the panelists because they are eminent people. Make in India is one of the flagship programs of this government. As the Minister also said, that once you have a kind of Make in India initiative that takes off, not only is it that initiative that would be important, but it will also have what economists call a lot of spillover and externalities, benefits associated with that. What better example to give than the Maruti example as a kind of manifestation of those huge benefits that are able to be harnessed not only by the automobile industry but also by the auto components industry, thereby building a very efficient and robust supply chain. And so what I'll do is that you all know Mr. Bhargava, and he's been the architect of Maruti. He's been the chairman. He continues to be associated with them in a non-executive capacity even today. He's kind of seen Maruti grow from the days when it started in the mid-80s to today to become the largest automobile manufacturer in India, and it's also supported a number of ancillary industries which themselves today have begun to be world-class and are exporting to a number of countries. So I think there's no other better person from the Indian side to start this discussion on Make in India and his thoughts. So Mr. Bhargav, may I request you for your remarks. Mr. Bhargav unfortunately has to leave. He has a flight to catch. So what I will do is that after he has spoken, then we'll allow, if the other panelists permit, that we can have a couple of questions for Mr. Bhargav, and then he has to catch a flight. Thank you, Mr. Bhargav.
Thank you very much. India wants to make in India. And to make in India, the essential requirement is that what we make in India must be globally competitive, both in terms of cost and quality. Making in India has to be along with quality and cost. There is no better example of a country which has achieved both quality and cost despite all the handicaps, as the minister just mentioned, of not having any raw materials than Japan. Japan was known before the war as a maker of pretty shoddy kind of goods. In a few years after the war, they transformed themselves into such a highly competitive nation that the Western world had to impose quotas on imports of cars and other products from Japan. And this, as we know, is after they were importing all the raw materials, including energy, and were exporting the finished products thousands of kilometers. So I'm not sure where all the handicaps of geography, which we talk about so much in India for giving subsidies and all, happened in Japan, because they didn't have any subsidies. They still managed. So if India has to learn from anybody, it has to be from Japan. There are other reasons, of course, why we should learn from Japan, and as Chairman mentioned just now, I think in Maruti we have seen the benefits of learning from Japan. We had the advantage in Maruti that when we started, we were all totally ignorant about the car industry. And it's probably easier for somebody who is ignorant and who knows he is ignorant but wants to learn. It becomes difficult to learn if you believe that you know it all. And I think that's one of the problems we have in India, that we are not good learners because we think we know better. What is it that we need to learn from Japan, which is especially suitable for the Indian environment? I think the first thing which we must understand is that in Japan, this high level of productivity and quality was achieved because of the motivation, and along with the motivation, the kind of skills which were developed by the workforce in Japan. How did this happen? Why did the workers in Japan get to a stage where they felt that their future and the future of the company were totally linked, and both would fall or progress together, and therefore they cooperated with the company for improving and making continuous improvements in productivity cost of the production of whatever they were making. And I think the credit for this must go largely to the management of Japanese companies, the managers, the promoters of the companies, and of course to the fact that the Japanese education system created people who were inherently disciplined and patriotic. In India, today, in our political and economic situation, I do not believe that we can progress if we follow the Western model of management-labor relations, which are essentially adversarial, and where the workers do not believe that they have a stake
in the future of the company. The management of the company and what happens to it in terms of profitability and growth is left to the management. The workers do not think that they have a role in making that happen, whereas in Japan it's quite the converse. I think in our economic situation, if we want to get to global competitiveness, starting so much later than others, there is no option but to follow the Japanese model and to create this belief in the workers through our policies, through our actions, learning from the Japanese that workers and management are actually not adversaries, they are on the same side, and if they work cooperatively and in full faith in each other, the amount of progress both can make would be far more than what can be made by any kind of adversarial relationships. And I think that's the Japanese lesson which exists, which is what Maruti has followed. But unfortunately, this has not been replicated almost anywhere in India, including in the Japanese companies which are working in India. And it's one of the strange things that the Japanese who developed this system of cooperative working have not been able to do it in India. And I believe the reason is that when the Japanese companies come to India, they hire Indian managers on the HR front and the IR areas. And those managers convince the Japanese that the Indian way of doing things is superior to the Japanese way of doing things, and that the Japanese way of doing things cannot work in India because of difference of cultural factors and other reasons. It's all totally rubbish. It can work very well if this attitude changes. And I think the answer is that when a Japanese company comes to India and starts working here, the first thing they have to do is to send a whole bunch of HR people and IR people to Japan for several months of training and understanding how Japan works and why industrial relations are managed in the way they do manage, and then bring them back to India to work, not rely upon the past Indian experience to happen. I think that way one important aspect of Make in India would be fulfilled, because without proper labor relations it can't happen. The issue, of course, in India is that our promoter industrialists are not often that much motivated for creating this kind of a competitive company. So far, largely, companies have been run as if they were the private kind of companies of the owners, even though they have public shareholdings and others, but companies are run largely for the benefit of the promoter and the promoter's family and family to come. I think that attitude has to change, because in Japan, the second thing which is very, very noticeable is that all people, including top management, are totally committed to the company. They have no other agenda but the growth and success of the company. I don't know how many companies in India can claim that their managements have only one agenda, which is the growth and success of the company and nothing else, no personal agendas. Whether it's the top management or other management, I think everybody has a personal agenda to follow. And I think that's the second thing which we need to learn from Japan, that if we are going to make in India, if we are going to become competitive globally, then companies have to be run as if in the interests of all the stakeholders, not in the interests of a few individuals. The other thing Japanese people rely on is systems. The attainment of first-time right, the attainment of high quality is not done by inspections or any such thing. It is done by a total reliance on the systems which are laid out and an adherence by everybody to following that systems rigidly and rigorously over long periods of time. If something goes wrong, they do what is known as a root cause analysis, find the cause of the problem, set it right, change the system, and go ahead. There is no hesitation in Japan in admitting that something was not perfect when it started. In fact, the whole system there is that everything is possible to be improved all the time, the spirit of Kaizen. And we need to understand in India that if we are going to progress, the only way is through continuous improvement in everything which we do. Reliance on precedents does not lead to continuous improvement. It leads to stagnation. And therefore, if we set for ourselves in each company the goal that every year we will compare what we did last year to what we are doing this year and what is the improvement which we are going to make in all areas, I think that's another lesson which we can learn from the Japanese. And then we will, if we rely on the systems and on continuous improvement, then we can, I think, improve productivity, improve quality, get things right the first time. Another thing which I must mention about the Japanese, they in many ways are much slower in taking decisions than we are. And they are perhaps not as academically inclined and do not debate and discuss as much as we do in India. But the difference is that while we keep discussing and debating, they go and act and they implement. In our country, we keep discussing and debating and nothing gets implemented. And I think a second-rate plan, but implemented in a first-rate manner, is far better than a first-rate plan which is not implemented. And I think that's another lesson which we need to learn from Japan and which the Japanese can do. But overall, my concluding remarks here would be that Maruti and one or two other companies in Japan have shown that the Japanese systems, methods and lessons which have just been mentioned can be successfully brought to India, can be successfully imbibed by the Indian people, that raw workers can be trained and motivated to become highly productive workers who produce high quality, as is evident from the fact that today Suzuki is relying upon Maruti to produce cars which will go back to Japan. And I think that's going to be the first and perhaps a step forward in the Make in India, that cars made in India will be actually exported and sold in the Japanese markets. So it can be done. And I think that's something which I would request that other Japanese companies who are in India should re-look at what they are doing in India, see how they can actually implement the Japanese systems in India, rely much more on training, which they normally do, and train people to understand the Japanese system and to rely on the Indian managers in that case after training to do what is required to bring the Japanese systems in India. And I think if the Japanese systems come in India, if the Japanese companies and the Japanese managers help in bringing those systems to India on
experience with the company. So as I said in the beginning, we could have a couple of questions before Mr. Bhargava leaves. He has to go to the airport, as I said. So we could, have a few questions for Mr. Bhargava. I myself could set the ball rolling by asking him, the Maruti model has been such a success, and now, as he's saying, it's beginning to export back to Japan. It's, I think, already been exporting to several other countries and going to export to Japan. And as I think he mentioned right at the beginning, no country has become a manufacturing powerhouse by reliance on the domestic market. This is kind of a stylized fact that we see across countries, including the East Asian countries that have become manufacturing giants, have not just relied on the domestic market. You need to be competitive in the export market, a point that Mr. Bhargava underlined so clearly. And India, therefore, Make in India, to be competitive, we have to become, we have to exploit export markets in addition to the market that India affords. But, scaling up has been a bane for Indian companies and for Indian manufacturers, and of course for other pursuits, including in services. We've not been able to scale up the way China has been able to scale up, and I wonder if Mr. Bhargava has some thoughts on how we could actually scale up our models of success. Any other questions? We'd collect a couple of questions and then
Thank you very much for a nice comment between Japan and India. In addition to your comments, I think Japanese people are much more group-oriented to work together, and Indian may be a little bit individually oriented. That makes another difference between the two societies. And second character is Japanese are always very quiet in the conferences, and Indians are talk, and lots of discussions are going on. So those are group-oriented and consensus working, and also individual-oriented may make some differences between two countries. Thank you very much.
there was a question there. Yes, Ambassador.
Hello. My question is particularly to Mr. Bhargava. Basically, you have immense experience as far as your career is concerned. I wanted to know, because you said the differences between Japanese and Indians. What are the commonalities?
Thank you. Yes, Ambassador.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bhargava, for this very useful presentation. My question is, you spoke about the very specific HR and IR ethos that emanates from Japan. Here in Maruti, over the last few years, we have seen that there has been a little bit of disturbance as far as industrial relations are concerned. Would you like to share some thoughts as to why did this happen, and how do you take it forward from there?
Okay, we'll have one more question back there, and then I'll give the floor back to Mr. Bhargava.
Mr. Bhargava, how did your